Okay, part 3 of the childhood tag. Sorry guys, I was about to get interrupted before. Okay, so I was talking about movies. So, Disney, yes. Certainly the second renaissance of Disney. So that would be from like Little Mermaid through to about Mulan or so. All of those films I saw at the cinema, usually at least twice, and of course then I got them on VHS, and I loved them. All of them. They made my movie-going experience as a kid, and that includes when Pixar came along with Toy Story and everything. I loved them very much. Aside from those, there were lots of the 90s was a great decade for family-orientated films that I thought were really decent. The 80s was too, to be fair. So stuff that I remember, I mean from the 80s, of course, there was The Goonies. Everybody loves The Goonies. Also, the Never-Ending Story saga. I think the Never-Ending Story 2, that was the first film I ever saw in a cinema. That would have been in like 1989 or so, I think. And I remember being really scared of the snake lady in it. And Jonathan Brandis was Bastian in that one. They changed Bastian in all the films. Because Jason James Richter was Bastian in Never-Ending Story 3. And he, of course, was in the Free Willy films, which I loved. I thought the Free Willy films were great, and I had a big crush on him too, so. What else was there? There was Little Rascals when I was about 6 or so. Oh, no, 6? 7? It was somewhere around there. And, that was a fun little film. That was cute. And the Home Alone films too. The first 2 of them, anyway. They were lots of fun. And, just trying to think what else there was. Because Disney occupies a lot of my memory for films as a kid, so yeah, I'd just say an awful lot of Disney, which can only be a good thing in my mind. Where am I? The worst trouble I got into as a child. I truly don't say this to be arrogant or pompous or anything. I was a fairly well-behaved kid. I can only think of one thing that stands out. The one time I was going to get a detention in primary school, and it was only in year 1, so I think I was 7 years old, and it was for this rule that had been implemented by this new teacher who was coming in. He was just a fill-in teacher. I think he was going to be there for maybe a month or so, while this other teacher was away, and no one liked this guy. He was a real jerk, and he apparently implemented some new rule in accordance with walking in front of him. I don't know, when we were going up from the play area at lunchtime or something, and we didn't know about that, and we were walking behind him, and so he turned around and said, "You're all getting detention tomorrow," and I was so upset. I'm like, what did I do wrong? So I went home crying to my parents, and I whinged about this guy, and I might have told a few little fibs about exactly what he'd said to me, and I did make it seem an awful lot worse than it probably was, to be fair, and my parents got very upset and went into school the next day and went off at this teacher and went to the principal about it and everything, and it was very embarrassing because the teacher was giving me glares knowing that I'd kind of lied about what had happened. But in the end, as embarrassing as it was, and of course my parents found out and they were not happy, and I was in a lot of trouble over that. But in the end, none of the kids got detention for this reason, so I like to think I did a good deed, even if I might have told some little white lies along the way. Worst memory as a kid. That's a really depressing question. I mean, I was in, there's lots of doctor's visits and hospital visits throughout my childhood that are not nice to think of. Also, I mean, as I said before, I was teased at school, so that's lots of unhappy school memories too. Such a sad question. Probably one thing that takes the cake without telling you anything too personal or anything. On my sister's birthday one year, our first family pet, Timmy, our first cat, he was hit by a car. So that wasn't very nice. So that certainly a pretty bad childhood memory. Thanks for making me bring that up. Yeah. Biggest fear as a kid. I was a pretty morbid child. So, because I've always been very unwell, so I was. I sound like Wednesday Addams saying this, but I was always scared of. I won't say of death necessarily, but I was always scared of being more sick. So that, or like, I was a little like mini hypochondriac even when I was tiny. But I was scared of clowns, especially because the clowns still freak me out. I don't find anything amusing or fun or happy about them at all. And I was scared of puppets. Puppets freak me out, especially if they were puppets of clowns. There was like two evils combined, and that just did my head in. I'd like TV shows that had puppets. For the most part, I would run screaming from the room. It took me a long time, I think, before I actually watched Sesame Street. I mean, in the end, that one was okay, but I still had a big thing about puppets, especially marionettes. They really scared me. And I've never liked dolls. Dolls freak me out too. Inanimate, like, human-looking toys, just can't do it. I can't. So, yeah, that's the last question. So there you go. I've finally done the childhood tag. Yeah! So, thank you, Lara, and thank you, Melissa, for tagging me. I'm sorry this was in 3 parts. I'm so sorry I ramble so much and pull weird faces and my eyes go everywhere and I talk about crap. So, I'm going to go and do the childhood book tag now because it looks like fun. And I really hope this uploads, you know, in less than a month. We'll see. Okay, so I'll see you all soon and happy reading.